Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today is going to be an uplifting story, full of hope. Nowadays, when people hear the word cancer, they lose all hope. Or maybe they lose hope, but it's half-hearted that they actually hold on to hope. And hope could be one of the most important things to help you fight this battle that you're about to fight. We're going to talk to my guest today, Dr. Diva Nagula, about his own journey of going from being a doctor to being a patient. This is going to be a wonderful interview because most physicians don't know what it feels like to walk in the shoes of the patients that they treat. And it's a game changer when you find a physician that understands that. So we'll get into that in a minute. Of course, we have to thank my title sponsor, Legendary Foods. Without them, this show would not exist. The website is eatlegendary.com. The coupon code is SHR. You'll save 10% off everything that they offer there. Seasoned nuts, just wonderful nut butters that taste like they have a lot of sugar in them and they don't. And of course, they're the starship of their product. And that is the Tasty Pastry, which is actually a Pop-Tart with less than 1 gram of sugar, less than 3 to 4 impact carbohydrates, and 9 grams of high quality protein. If your macros are important to you, go there, show them some love, tell them that Carl sent you. And so we're going to remove that and bring my guest on. How you doing, Dr. Nagula?
I'm doing great, Carl. How are you?
And that really is true. You are doing great now, aren't you? But you weren't there for a while.
Yeah, you're darn right. I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah. Before we get into that, how has your life changed since you had this, potentially this could have killed you. It could have consumed you. It's a blood cancer. It's actually a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, very, very dangerous cancer. How do you look at life now?
Oh, I look at it so differently now through a different lens. I have healed myself over and over again and discovered so many different things to help heal me and to also look at life totally differently than what I was looking at even before I was diagnosed with cancer. So it was actually a blessing that I actually had cancer because of the realities that have changed since actually looking at things differently and actually having an understanding of how to live a healthy life.
Do you think most physicians know how to live a healthy life?
No, 100% no. And it depends on what you qualify as a physician. If you're talking about a physician that practices the traditional Western medicine, I say no. If you are talking about a physician or a health practitioner that actually understands holistic medicine, understanding how to diagnose conditions and getting to the root cause of the problem, then I say yes. But there is a vast majority of people that are following traditional medicine versus the integrative or functional medicine where you're getting to the root cause of the problem.
And really, we have to harken back to some of the medical styles of Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine when we want to integrate health, because those were the styles of medicine that focused on staying healthy and not getting sick in the first place. Allopathic medicine is more of a we treat you once you're sick, go out there and do your best to figure things out on your own.
Right. And yes, and we're using, and some of the integrative approaches uses Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, but it also encompasses a difference about holistic practices. We're not just looking at a specific ailment. We're looking at what is causing the ailment. So we're looking at it from a spiritual perspective, a nutrition perspective, what we put into our body. We're also looking at toxins that are prevalent in our environment, We're looking at those types of things that could have a role in a specific chronic disease that you might be having. So it's looking at the big picture, not really what if a physician does, an allopathic physician does, is just looking at a problem, looking at a number, looking at a laboratory value, and making a diagnosis and a recommendation accordingly.
So tell your story. Start at the beginning. You're a physician. You're a doctor of osteopathy. You treat patients for a wide variety of diseases. Most of them are diseases of modernity. I think we can all agree to some part to that. I would imagine that at one point in your career, you turned your nose up on things like Ayurvedic medicine or even traditional Chinese medicine, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was an osteopathic physician, so the difference between an osteopathic and an allopathic physician is very simple. An osteopathic physician has more of a holistic perspective in the musculoskeletal sense. So we are actually trained to do a lot of what chiropractic practitioners do, but we also have the education and knowledge of an allopathic physician. So in my eyes, it's the best of both worlds. When I practiced medicine and I learned in the allopathic tradition, I did all my training in allopathic institutions. I did my residency and my fellowship through allopathic institutions. So I was literally in a situation where I call it brainwashed now, but back then I was calling it education. Essentially, I was brainwashed to think that medicine should be practiced utilizing pharmaceuticals. And I have a strong disinclination for that thought process at this point. And I don't find that as relevant as I did. And it's because that's what they train you. And they don't really teach you anything about nutrition and diet. And that is a huge travesty because we can heal so much of disease processes simply by changing our diet or adding some foods to our regimen that we normally don't. So that was a huge thing that I learned after I got diagnosed and was trying to understand where this disease came from and how I need to heal myself and stay in remission. So that was a big a learning point for me.
Do you think that, and I have a suspicion about this, but do you think that, like, for instance, once you've suffered from heat stroke, you have a higher rate of it happening again? It's almost like when the body gets pushed past a certain threshold, and once it sees the other side, so to speak, it's hard for that not to happen if you given even lesser conditions that pushed it there in the first place. Do you think that once you have developed cancer, that there is a higher probability that you can develop it again?
Oh, I agree that is 100% accurate statement. And the reason being is because there are cancers that are genetically predisposed, and you just got the wrong hand dealt to you, right? So that's fine. But a large majority of these cancers and chronic diseases occur because of lifestyle practices. And so if you are diagnosed with cancer, and in my instance, it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it was a lifestyle way of living my life that led me to that diagnosis. And as is many other diagnoses of cancer that's out there, if you get diagnosed and get treated using chemotherapy, immunotherapy, or whatever else is out there, you're not addressing all the issues of your lifestyle practices and that cause you to have the cancer. And no oncologist is going to tell you that. They're going to tell you that, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get chemo and we're going to fix this, which is probably true because there's so many advances in modern medicine. But the problem is that you are at risk of having the cancer reoccur simply because your lifestyle practices haven't changed. So your diet, your stress that you're under, the environmental toxins that you're probably encounter on a regular basis, all the personal care products that have so many chemicals that you're applying on a daily basis, all of these accumulate over time and can have a risk of causing you to have cancer or chronic disease. So that's why it's important to really look at your lifestyle practices after you've gone through chemo if you have a diagnosis of cancer. Otherwise, it's going to come back.
So what were the cancerous choices you were making? I know you use that term in the book. What were the cancerous choices that you were making that you had to eradicate from your life so that this wouldn't come back?
Right. So number one for me was as I learned about my cancer and realized that it was caused by my lifestyle choices, I looked at it, and the biggest thing that I changed was my diet. And my diet was so poor when I was in high school. My mom cooked great home cooked meals. We were vegetarian growing up, and so everything was really organic and fresh. And at that time, you didn't have to worry about these herbicides and pesticides that are rampant in our diet. So I changed everything. So I no longer ate processed food. I no longer had a whole lot of sugary beverages that I used to drink a lot. I also ate everything. I changed everything to organic. And prior to this diagnosis, I probably couldn't tell you the last time I ate a meal that had a good rainbow array of vegetables. And when I mean a rainbow, I mean like all the colors of the rainbow,
Right.
applied to vegetables and fruits for me to intake. The last time usually the leafy vegetable that I would eat would be a scrap of lettuce that'd be in my burger, and that's the poor nutrition that I was getting. And that is classic standard American diet. And that is what people consume every single day. We don't really discuss and worry about the quality of food that we're putting in our bodies. We just eat food to either satisfy our appetite, or because it's something social that we're doing. We're not really engaged in the quality of food that we're putting into our bodies. And so that was the one thing that I changed immediately. It was a hard change and it was a hard switch, but after 1 to 2 months, like, I started to feel significantly improved because I felt like I had more nutrition in my body. The brain fog was gone. The improvement in sleep was significantly better because I had a better nutrition. I started to lose fat because I wasn't eating such immense amount of calories because I eliminated processed food.
Right.
That was the one thing that I think that had a huge impact for me.
So tell your story. Let's talk about when you were diagnosed. What brought you to a doctor in the form of a patient? What symptoms did you have?
You're right. So interesting thing is that I had exited my medical practice that I had started up a year before I got diagnosed. So I really didn't have a whole lot of stress at the time. And I didn't have any issues about going to work, worrying about employees, worrying about patients. And that was a lot of stress that I'd carried for a long time when I was practicing medicine. And so when I went into it, to the doctor's office, it was a routine physical that I was actually having at the end of the year. And essentially what I went to him to get an advice and opinion on was these enlarged areas in my neck. And they were actually getting larger, week by week. And it was in the course of a month where I was like, okay, I got to go see somebody for this. I assumed it was a cyst, because I'm a physician. I was feeling fine. I wasn't feeling fatigued. I wasn't losing any weight, which are telltale signs of typically a person who does get diagnosed with cancer. I was feeling totally fine. I went into the doctor's office and I asked him what's going on with this. And we had just had some blood work done, which was totally fine. It was normal. So he looked at my neck and he's like, let's take a look further. Let's get a CAT scan of your neck and just see what's going on and see if we need to investigate further. So I went to the CAT. I went and got the CAT scan done, and about 3 weeks later, I went back and we reviewed the CAT scan results together. And it was there where we saw it together, and the imaging study showed that my lymph nodes were enlarged all over the place. To give you a little perspective, a normal lymph node is about 1 to 2 centimeters in size. My lymph nodes that had grown to one centimeter. So it went from 1 millimeter to 1 centimeter in size. And so it was extremely enlarged, which was abnormal. And typically the telltale signs from a physician's perspective, this was going on in my head when he was telling me all this, was like, okay, well, it could be an infection that's brewing. It could be some inflammation that's going on that's brewing in my body. The last thing I would think about is cancer, because I was feeling so fine and no issues. So the next thing he says is like, let's refer you to an oncologist. I'm like, why? Because that freaked me out a little bit. Because like, why are we going there? He's like, well, we need to get a workup, and the oncologist has to rule out specific things to make sure that this isn't cancer. And so that's when the C word first came out. I went to the oncologist. We did a battery of tests. We did more scans. We did a lymph node biopsy, the whole 9 yards, the whole workup. And after all the diagnostic tests were done, I went back into the office with my wife at the time, And he shared me with the results. The first thing he said is, you had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And my wife started to cry, and she was bawling. And we weren't expecting this at all. I literally had just gotten married, and I had exited my practice. I was looking forward to starting a family and entering a new part of my life. This was not something that I really needed to hear at the time, or was expecting to hear at the time. And so this was a private practitioner in Jacksonville, Florida, who told me that I had the diagnosis of cancer, and he wanted me to go and start an aggressive form of chemotherapy immediately. And I was like, whoa, I kind of have to research this, and I need to think about this. I need to get a second opinion. I need to do some more investigating. And to me, it was just odd as why he wanted to start chemo for me. And as I researched more, and I had more physicians that I went to go see a specialist at Sloan Kettering, which is in New York. I went to see a specialist at Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and everyone said that I did not need to start this aggressive chemotherapy. And it dawned on me why this physician wanted to do this is because he was a private practitioner and he owned an infusion center. And so he was incentivized by sending me to his infusion center to start an aggressive chemotherapy regimen. And so I was just like, okay, this is where we have issues with medicine, right? And at the time, that's when my eyes started to raise about the infallacies and all the issues of incentivized.
Did you confront him about this? Did you go to him and say?
I didn't actually. I didn't go back to him at that time. I was more involved with my own personal cancer.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So
I get it.
I didn't get an opportunity to. I wish I did. I would have told him. I'll give him a piece of my mind. But anyway, so we did this thing that was called watch and wait, and that was a recommended therapy for me because I was not feeling any symptoms.
Right.
Even though I had the cancer, we still had some time where we could implement lifestyle strategy changes that could basically revert or help revert the cancer. And that's what I was hoping for. And so I went all in. I changed my diet. I was starting to exercise. I was doing everything that I could to improve my health, to reduce the inflammation that was in my body. Trying to get my mind right, to really be more in a relaxed state of being and not be so stressed out. I didn't have any reason to because I was not working at the time. So we were going to get serial scans just to make sure everything was okay. And about 6 months into this watch and wait period, I actually started to have this flank pain in my left side. And I was like, okay, what is going on here? It felt like a kidney stone because it started to radiate into my groin. And when you have cancer cells and they have a high turnover, it actually increases the amount of calcium that's in your body. And I was thinking this is the cause of why I'm having stones, because most of the kidney stones have calcium. So that was the logic I was thinking. And I was like, I called my doctor. He said, well, you're scheduled for your first set of scans in a week. Let's push it up and let's go ahead and see what's going on. I got the scans, came back to his office, and unfortunately, my cancer had aggressively grew. The lymph nodes that were 1 centimeter in size were no longer distinguishable. They were no longer lymph nodes. They were actually grown to a point where they coalesced into this big mass. And was all over my body, behind my stomach, in front of my kidneys, around my groin area. All the lymph nodes, I just grew even more. And at that point, he said, we need to start chemo ASAP. And that's when it became really real for me. Is when he. What
do you think caused it to accelerate? I mean, you actually were doing things right now, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a good question.
What do you think?
Well, I think because it was in an advanced stage, it really was something that it was difficult to revert. And there's no telling if some of these strategies that I implemented were actually working, because we didn't really get like serial scans weeks apart or a month apart to really know what I was doing was actually playing a role in regressing the cancer. So there's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of like things that unfortunately I wish I'd done differently, but I really feel that they did help. It probably gave me that 6 month window where if I didn't do that, I probably would have had to have that chemo earlier.
Right.
But that's probably what happened.
Okay, so you got the chemo, and I want to fast forward through that because I want to come back to something that I thought is very, very interesting in this discussion. So you got the chemo, and it worked, which it usually does. Lymphoma is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is something that is very curable today if it's caught early, and it worked. But now, you've got to be timid about moving forward. Like, wow, I was doing all these things that I thought were right. I don't want this to come back. How do I proceed? How do I move forward so this really doesn't come back? What is your checks and balances? What is your logic moving forward for what to include in your lifestyle and what to exclude?
Yeah, good question. I knew from the beginning that diet was really important, and that was a big part of my research. And I was trying to research what are the things that I could do. It was around that time while I was getting diagnosed, or actually started chemo, and I discovered a field of medicine called integrative medicine. And integrative medicine, as we talked about briefly earlier on the show, is typically a blend of traditional medicine and holistic wellness medicine. And so it's a practice of traditional allopathic, but it also gives a lot of credence to traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and other holistic practices like diet and supplementation. So I applied for this fellowship, and it was at University of Arizona under Dr. Andy Weil, who is a very well-known practitioner. So he was a program director out there. And so I was like, this is my path. This is what I have to do. And because I can learn about my own cancer and how I can regress it, and not only regress it at the time, but more stay in remission. And I can actually help other people who are facing the same plight. And so that's where it began. I started to learn a lot of strategies about lifestyle changes, and I started to implement these strategies, but specifically the diet and exercise was a big part of it. And as I was learning more about these practices, I learned more about supplementation, what specific supplements that I needed to take. And that's when I really became more interested in putting supplements in my body that really reduced inflammation. And that was the key. It was a strategy that I had to live, where I would have, whether it was the way I lived my life through stress, or whether it was what I put into my body, everything had a role on reducing inflammation. And that's the root cause of all diseases, is this high amounts of inflammation.
So on this show, I've kind of tried to drum this into the audience's mind. When we talk about inflammation, we're talking about the army of the immune system. When we talk about the immune system, we're talking about the gut, because 90% of the immune system resides in the gut. So when we talk about inflammation, we talk about gut problems. That's really where they start. But modern medicine doesn't connect those two. They treat inflammation by using analgesics and anti-inflammatories instead of addressing where why is the army of the immune system being called like there's a war when there's no war, and you'd have to look at what's going on in the gut. Talk to me about your gut from, first of all, did you drink coffee before? And do you drink coffee today? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I was always a coffee drinker, but I still drink coffee, but I drink organic coffee, and I drink 1 cup a day. And
did you drink more back then? Did you drink a lot more back then?
I would drink 1 to 2. I mean, the issue back then for caffeine intake, it wasn't coffee. It was more about I would drink these crappy sugary beverages, right? Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, whatever it was that I could get to amp me up to get through the day. Right. I don't consume those anymore. But I do drink coffee, and I also drink green tea. Green tea has so many health benefits. So I drink green tea, my coffee in the morning, and then I drink the green tea throughout the day.
Very good. So tell me about your gut. Did you have stomach problems before? Did you have slow digestion, slow gut motility? Did you have bouts of pain in the stomach, anything like that? And then what about today?
Yeah. So that was a telltale for me, which I didn't know at the time. So for years, when I was practicing my practice, which was a very, very high stress time of my life, and I would always have issues with my stomach. My bowel habits, I would go frequently 5, 6, 7 times a day, very loose. I would often be bloated. I would be gassy. And to be honest with you, at the time, it became the new normal for me, right? So I couldn't remember what normal was. And I didn't have the time or the energy to research what was going on in my gut. I just figured it was like, okay, I ate something bad, at Chick-fil-A or at Subway.
It didn't agree with me. That's why I ate something that didn't agree with me. Right.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I felt it was. And I knew I was starting to get lactose intolerant. So I was like, okay, did I have cheese that day? Yes, I did. Maybe that's why I feel gassy and have issues. And interesting enough, it got a little bad to the point where I had to go see a gastroenterologist. And I have 2 family members that are gastroenterologists, and they're like, yeah, you probably need to see somebody, because one of the things that you want to look for is a person who is having frequent bowels or change in bowels is see if they have any issues with inflammatory bowel disease or cancer. So I got scoped. The doctor, said, oh, you shouldn't be going 6-7 times a day. And if it's watery or if it's loose, we need to figure out what's going on. So, of course, first thing he did was schedule a scope. The scope was normal, but that was it. There was no discussions about my diet. There was no discussions about maybe I should get on some probiotics or maybe do a food sensitivity test to see if I have allergies to specific foods that are causing these symptoms. None of that. So, it was normal. So guess what I started to do? I continued to do what I was doing. Why should I change? I went to a gastroenterologist who did a scope. I don't have any signs of inflammatory bowel disease. I don't have cancer. I don't have any polyps. I don't need to change anything. So that was my thinking. This is me, a physician, thinking that, right? So imagine what the standard person is out there thinking when they're going through the same processes as I went through. And, So there was bowel changes, and that was, for me, looking back at it now, you can get so much information from the caliber of your stool by just looking at it and the bowel habits.
My audience is laughing right now because I've actually done entire shows. People are afraid to look in the toilet at their poop, but the poop tells you if the food you're eating is the right. We do it to our pets too. People feed their dogs food, and the dog has loose bowel movement. You go in the wilderness and you look at the poop from a wolf. It's solid formed. It's nice and hard. Point. I mean, and that really, I would say, and this is a bold statement, but probably 70% of all disease states today happen because of what we feed ourselves day in and day out, months and years. Mm-hmm. And your poop tells you if the food you're eating is right for you. We have that idiot, Larry the Cable Guy, doing Nexium commercials, fighting with the hot dog. And when the food you love doesn't love you, take Nexium. No, when the food you love doesn't love you, don't eat it.
That's the problem, is that is exactly, you see these commercials on TV. If you have heartburn or indigestion, you take this specific medicine. If you don't take an antacid, let's get you to another a H2 blocker, which is like Zantac or Pepcid. And if that doesn't work, let's give you a proton pump inhibitor, which is the purple pill. So it's like, in these medicines, they work, but you get dependent on it, and it's not natural. We're supposed to change our diet. And really, and that's the key thing is that we're such a society that wants immediate gratification that the medical doctors, they know that. So let's prescribe you a pill and let's make it go away, instead of actually doing the work of getting to the root cause and fixing the problem.
I want to take our first commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about the body, the mind. So we've been talking about the body this whole time. I want to talk about the mind, the value in treating cancer and disease states. When you allow the mind to be part of what you're fixing. We're talking today with Dr. Diva Nagula. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Carl. For 14 years, you've heard me talk about Can-C eye drops, and they being the reason that I do not need reading glasses at now 61 years old. But I regularly get emails and messages from people who've been using Can-C and having some amazing results. Recently, I got an email from a fellow named Chad, who, because he was on dexamethasone eye drops for over 6 months, developed a cataract. Can-C eye drops actually reduced my cataract to the point where even my doctor has a hard time finding it. I will never stop using Can-C eye drops twice a day. I've been using them since 2008, he says. And you should be too. There is no better way to keep your eyes healthy and seeing clearly than Can-C eye drops. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com today and get on board, and we will both be looking into the future with very clear vision.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the healthier alternative to sugar-laden beef jerky. Their sugar-free biltong is seasoned and then air-dried for up to 2 weeks, providing you with one of the most tender and flavorful meat snacks that you've ever had. They also use a fattier cut of beef, which adds to the tenderness and gives their biltong even better flavor. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the perfect snack or travel companion for your busy life. Get a free bottle of Ranch-tastic seasoning with every order, free shipping on orders of $99 or more. Get yours today at selectsavorysnacks.com/SHR. You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of having. Started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me to help with anxiety. Because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers. There's no denying that a low-carb, low-sugar keto lifestyle has been shown to reverse chronic inflammation and normalize insulin sensitivity. But we all want a sweet snack from time to time. Well, no matter what you're looking for, you'll find it at Perfect Keto. Bars, cookies, exogenous ketones, keto-friendly performance enhancers, it's all in one place. I love their chocolate quad ketone salts that balance all 4 minerals. And try their keto bars for unique taste satisfaction, all the while knowing you're staying in your keto lifestyle lane. Go to perfectketo.com/superhuman to save 20% off your purchase today. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back. You can learn more about the book From Doctor to Patient at fromdoctortopatient.com. The book is really inspiring, and inspiration is what you need. You really do. It's available at the website from doctortopatient.com or Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or wherever finer books are sold. Inspiration is really important. You know, I almost drowned off the coast of Yugoslavia as a young man. And I remember the moment that I gave up. You almost get relaxed. It's inevitable. It's like you can't save yourself. It's all, oh my God, this is it. This is how I'm going to go. No one's going to find me. No one's even knows where I am in the water. And luckily, I had a couple more cc's of energy in me to take a shot and get on my back and back stroke back to the seashore. But there was a moment where I had this kind of relaxed feeling where you just kind of give in. It's inevitable. I think that people who are diagnosed with life-threatening diseases, they lose the ability to fight. And that's in here. That's in your mind. Your mind has to be up for the battle. If it's not, you just kind of go, it's my destiny and I'm going to go. So talk about the mind. Talk about what you experienced, knowing that you could die. This could consume you. but you want to go on. How do you stay focused? How do you keep hope alive? You have to keep hope alive, right?
Yeah, those are all really good questions. And we could talk about this from different perspectives of me first being diagnosed and then what I learned after I went into remission and through my research. Initially, the problem that I had was my mind was taxed. I had lived in a state of fight or flight for pretty much my entire life. I think I was born into this world in fight or flight, to be honest with you. So when I actually had the diagnosis of cancer, I actually gave up. My mind just basically, I had no fight left in me, and it was hard for me to give in because I'm a control person. I have to have control over the situation, and for me, going into the process of leaving my entire prognosis of my life to the medications that was being administered just didn't resonate with me, and that's what had ultimately happened. I became very angry. I was angry at everyone. I was angry at life. I was angry at people. I was angry at God. I didn't trust anybody. I pushed everybody away, and I'm sure that contributed to issues with my marriage. But it was the only way that I could live, because the anger fueled me and gave me energy to get through the day. Otherwise, I would have been resorted to the bed and stayed in bed all day because of depression. I had my wife and I had a household to keep up with, and to worry. So I had to be strong for them. I had to just use that fuel as energy. And so that's what happened. And so I had really wished, when we're talking about the mind, I remember going to Mayo Clinic and the oncologist's office. There was this big waiting room, and there was a sign next to the receptionist that said, if you want to talk to a psychologist about your diagnosis, here, we're happy to make a recommendation and a referral. That was never brought to my attention when I actually sat with my oncologist, whether it's because he knew I was a physician and he thought that I would know better, or he didn't think I needed it. Yet there was still a sign at the front desk. But it was a travesty that I didn't have mental health counseling during this whole process. I didn't know how to cope with this. I was 40 years old when I was diagnosed, and when I had this thing, and I literally had my whole life to look forward to, and I just got married, as I mentioned before, looking to start a family, and that was the problem. And my anger was normal, but I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know, this was normal, and I didn't have any strategies in place to cope with this. So unfortunately, that's what I went through, and it's not the right thing to do. And I really highly recommend anyone who is going through a disease process such as cancer or any chronic disease to really seek counseling. It's vital to have some coping strategies in place. So that's one thing that I wanted to discuss. But to your point, mentally, it was all about how to live a life that's not in fight or flight. And if you live a life where you can actually balance, your nervous system, and where you're more in parasympathetic or fight or rest and digest, it serves your body so much better. It allows you to do two things. It allows you to get out of that heightened state where all those hormones are running and cortisol levels are high, and puts us on edge. There's a right time to be in that state, but when a mountain lion is coming down at us, yes, that is an appropriate time to be engaged in a fight or flight system. But if we're sitting there routinely, having a conversation, there's no reason to sit there and be in fight or flight. And when we're in that state, we're causing inflammation, and that's what we need to reduce. And a lot of these issues about lifestyle and inflammation can really be curtailed by just reduction of stress or modulation of stress. And so for me, I started to, as I was writing my book, I was researching and learning about all these mindfulness strategies. And mindfulness is, by definition, is moment-to-moment awareness without judgment. And so it could be practiced by numerous ways. You could actually do meditation. You can do breathing exercises. You could engage in activities like yoga, tai chi. You could even do what I call is the lazy man's way of meditating, is by listening to binaural beats. And these are all strategies that really can help you to be more in a rest or digest state. But more importantly, it actually helps you to be more present. And that was the other issue that I had. I did not know how to be present and be in the moment.
You were
As a
always
physician-
thinking of the past or the future.
and that's what a physician
Right.
does.
I know.
Because as a physician, we are, and from college, always looking ahead. We look at what medical school we have to apply to. We look at what residency program we apply to. We then, after residency, we have all these board examinations that we have to take. It's never about living in the moment. It's always prepping for the future, and then always having regrets about the past. So that's exactly what I went through, and I didn't know how to live in the moment. And so living in the moment is, by true definition, you don't have any problems in the moment. You're living in the moment. It's pure happiness and pure bliss. It's when our mind wanders and thinks about the future or regrets in the past, that's when we start increasing our stress levels and anxiety levels. So by practicing mindfulness, I was really able to do two things: really to achieve being more in the moment, and two is to really get out of that heightened state of fight or flight and be more in a more relaxed state.
When you're a prisoner of war, maybe you sleep on the floor for 15, 20 years, maybe for 5 years. And then when you come and you're presented with a bed, you have a hard time sleeping in a bed. We get used to chaos in our lives. There are a lot of people, and I'm sure you know people like this, and I absolutely know people. There's always some disaster, always some explosion in their lives. And they go through life acting like it's been put upon them, when in reality, it's a result of choices that they've made. And so when you live a life, like you said about, fight or flight, there are people who are literally in fight or flight every minute of every day because that is where they feel most comfortable. They don't know anything else. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. I went to when I first started training as a power lifter, I had been abusing caffeine, and I ended up going to the ER, and my blood pressure was very, very high. My heart rate was very, very high. And I remember I wasn't paying attention. The nurse was talking to me. The doctor was talking to me. They gave me a shot, and I'm just standing there talking to them. And all of a sudden I said to them, "Wait, something's wrong. I think I'm dying. And the doctor looked at the scope, and he says, "No, you're not dying." He goes, "Your heart rate just dropped to 65." Like, in other words, I got so used to being up there that being down here felt like, oh, something's wrong with me. There are people who actually live their lives that way, and it's very sad. If you're somebody that there's always a problem in your life, take a step back. You're not being put upon. You're putting upon yourself. There are things that you're doing. And you're absolutely right. We need to live our lives with more peacefulness, and that has a lot to do with it. So the other thing that you said that I wanted to mention, when my dad got old, I noticed he became very angry. And we always hear this thing about angry old men. But I really think, now that I look back at him, that anger was the only thing he had left where he felt energized, where he felt in control of his environment, where he felt alive. And that's really sad. What do we do to stop us from turning to anger to feel like we exist?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's first recognizing that we are in state of anger. I mean, I think if you point that out to a person who's in that state, they're going to deny it. But then you present them with objective data, like your blood pressure, your heart rate, and just talk to them about their sleep. I bet you it's all impaired. And then their level of their mindset, I bet you they have an issue of underlying depression. I mean, we know that, depression and anger are along the same wavelengths, except on opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's really the issues of what's underlying, what's causing that anger. Is there repressed issues? Is there trauma that's going on? Is there underlying depression or anxiety that's causing this anger to come out? That's where it's all about. And that's where I think it's important, again, to get to the root cause of it, and not by prescribing a medication like a SSRI or Xanax to really alleviate the symptoms.
And I agree with you. And something I've said on the show numerous times is, sometimes sadness is an appropriate response to circumstances in your life. And doctors want to give you a pill. It would be the equivalent of if I'm sitting in the movie theater laughing hard at this movie and someone came to me and said, hey, you're laughing really hard. You need to take a pill for that. No,
Yeah.
laughter is appropriate at this moment in time. Sadness is appropriate. Divorce, death, loss of a job. There are events. Now, granted, you may dwell in sadness a long time, but how long is too long? That is your personal circumstances to decide, not some doctor to say, well, you should have been over this by now. We're going to give you an SSRI.
Right. And that's why
Very
there's so many different coping strategies, with cognitive behavioral therapy, with so many different strategies that you could utilize to help. And then granted, now don't get me wrong, pharmaceuticals have its role in society. And Prozac has saved thousands and thousands of lives, and I give credence to it. But there are other strategies that we can implement that don't have a bearing on our bodies and don't have interactions with other medicines or supplements or other vitamins that we're taking, and doesn't cause that dependency. And I really feel we need to explore more of that, and not be dependent on pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, pharmaceuticals should be used as a rescue, like a crutch. A guy breaks his leg. You don't say, here's a crutch. You're going to use this for the rest of your life. You're going to say, we're going to use this until the bone sets and you can walk on your own. The problem is that too many physicians turn to pharmaceuticals as a lifelong endeavor. You're absolutely right. The book is From Doctor to Patient, Healing Cancer Through Mind, Body, and Spirit. When we come back, we're going to talk about the spirit. The website is fromdoctortopatient.com. The book is available there, or Barnes & Noble, or Amazon. And then also you can check out the podcast there, From Doctor to Patient podcast. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We have one quick question from a viewer, and it's a really good question. And he says, what if your now moment sucks? Being in the moment.
It's okay, because you're actually experiencing that moment and you're experiencing that emotion, rather than not dealing with it and thinking about the future and thinking about the past. You're dealing with your issues. You're dealing with what is going on, what's being in the moment. That's okay. I think that's actually a good way of actually coping with things. A lot of people don't live in the moment, and they're not able to cope with stuff and deal with their emotions and get through it and process it accurately.
Yeah, just let it happen. I was actually in talk therapy when I was in my 20s, and I was living in Las Vegas, and I was lucky to find a good therapist. He was really a great therapist. A lot of the things he taught me, I still apply in my life today. His name was Jerry Katz. I wish I could find him again. But he said, like if you're sad, he goes, stay home and wallow in it. He says, stay home, be miserable, cry, overeat, do whatever you want to do, because you'll get through it faster. So instead of pushing it away and prolonging it, jump into it and it'll be gone faster. So I've used that in my life.
Also, if you are sad and are depressed, yeah, it is a different state, but there is some beauty in being that emotion. A lot of creativity happens when you're in this state of mind. So you have to explore this and not sit there and be in that state. And it's like, I shouldn't be in this state. I need to get out of it. No, explore it, get into it, be curious about it.
Yeah, it really is something. You know what? We're going to go ahead and talk about the spirit now, because I'm having a little technical difficulty. So let's do this. Let's just go right into it. Talk to me about the spirit. A lot of people, including myself, I don't have real great feelings about organized religion today. That's not what you're talking about when you're talking about treating the spirit, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that religion is one way of organizing people that have a common belief, and that's what religion basically is. Spirituality is really about having a connection with the universe, having a connection with your fellow human being. That's really what spirituality is, and it's also about again, it's all about connection. And for me, when I was doing my book research, I wasn't even going to really talk about spirit. And then I started to do more and more research and understand that that's where a lot of my deficiencies was spiritual growth. And I didn't have a whole lot of connection. I was really lonely. I didn't know how lonely I was until I started researching. And there was this one stat that I write in my book that really stared at me, and I was like, wow, loneliness is actually as big of a risk factor as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day or being a chronic alcoholic. It's the same risk. It's the same risk of mortality as being obese and living a sedentary lifestyle. And it's amazing to me when I read that, I was like, wow, that is a huge, huge issue that we need to solve.
Yeah,
And
no one
loneliness,
thinks about it.
no, and loneliness doesn't mean that, okay, well, I'm around 20 people all the time and I go home, I'm around my family all the time. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you can't feel lonely and lack connection. And that's the issue. And that's what happened to me all my life. Is like I was around people, the wrong type of people, where I couldn't feel like I could speak freely without being butchered or without being held, without being acknowledged and understood.
Judge, you said it. So being in the moment is being in the moment without judgment about the
Non-judgment.
moment. And so that same thing comes to pass with people. When you're around people that are very judgmental, they make you clam up. You don't want to say anything anymore.
Yeah.
And you can't be honest.
And and people who are lonely, there is a remedy for that. You know, obviously connection is one thing, but being of service to others is a way of actually combating loneliness. You know, joining some sort of a community service program or just helping your man. Those are service to others where that can help get out of that loneliness feeling. So I started to do more of that. And, you know, a lot of things accelerated for me when I started to actually engage in psychedelics. And I talk about that in my book and how a lot of my experiences and a lot of my issues that I had, you know, it was like I 1 or 2 explorations of psychedelics was like years of psychotherapy.
Yes.
And it was amazing how much clarity I got and how much connection I felt to people, how much my heart opened. My heart was closed for so long because of the cancer, because of the divorce. And it was just closed. And then exploring psychedelics and having understanding of what's going on. And then also the psychedelics enhanced connections in my brain. It's called neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
And it repaired old connections that were severed, and it actually enhanced new connections from one part of the brain to the other. And that just opened up things for me. I saw things differently. I experienced things differently. I had hope. I had inspiration. You know, I understood that, you know, I had to be positive and live positively, because if you are positive and have a mindset of positivity, then that energy will come back right at you. And that's all what I talk about in the section.
I want to talk more about psychedelics. I want to go ahead and force our break now. And when we come back, I want to talk more about psychedelics, because I've actually talked about my own use. I microdose still to this day periodically. We've done shows about it, but I also did a lot of acid as a kid. In the 60s, it was okay. No one judged you for doing acid. In fact, it was a prerequisite. So we're going to take one quick commercial break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. I love beef. And if you love beef, listen up. I've discovered the best tasting beef in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, at Piedmontese.com. The Piedmontese breed is famous from Italy for being lean and unbelievably tender, with half the fat and calories of traditional beef. Even typically tough cuts are tender when it comes from the Piedmontese cows. And for the first time ever, Piedmontese cows are being raised here in the USA. Get 2 free 10-ounce New York strips when you purchase $50 or more at Piedmontese.com with code SHR. Go to Piedmontese.com and use code SHR today. You will never eat any other type of beef ever again.
Planet Earth CBD offers a fast-acting transdermal patch that targets your aches and pains for the relief you need. Not only is the patch uniquely patented, but it is widely believed to provide larger quantities of available cannabinoids to the source of pain than other brands' subpar products. Effective for 24 to 48 hours, experience the benefits of Planet Earth's high-quality transdermal patch. Manufactured by Next Generation Technology in an FDA-registered facility, this pressure-sensitive adhesive delivers rich hemp extract directly through the skin. Be it a neck ache or a headache, you can count on CBD to take off the edge. Go to planetearthcbd.com today to learn more.
Everybody wants to feel better, be healthier and happier. If you don't sweat profusely on a regular basis, you won't feel as good as you could. Studies have shown the power of infrared sauna. Infrared penetrates 1 to 2 inches into the body. It helps those with back pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, depression, and anxiety. Patients get relief from infrared sauna. The Good Health sauna has been shown to be an exercise mimetic, conveying many of the same benefits as cardio. There are are a lot of reasons people buy a Good Health sauna, but the bottom line is you will be a much happier, healthier person by using the Good Health sauna every day. You'll crave it, you'll love it, and it will be the best purchase you have ever made. Good Health saunas provide commercial-grade saunas for in-home and commercial use, backed by the best lifetime warranty in the industry. Unmatched customer service and the best financing makes owning one easy and will fit any budget. Go to goodhealthsauna.com/superhumanradio to learn more and save 25% off. Are you still on the fence about Body Protection Complex BPC Oral from drseeds.com? Listen to Maggie Kuhn, one of the owners of the C-Bus Lifting Company gym in Columbus, Ohio.
I had been having some nagging tendon issues that weren't injuries, just things that were annoying. You know, I'm 58 years old, so just older tendon kind of issues. For us powerlifters, you know, we really don't stop training when we have just nagging issues. We just kind of keep pushing through. And I started the BPC. What I noticed was I was doing some heavy tricep stuff that would have killed me before when I had an elbow problem, and I was able to do this with literally no pain at all.
Go to drseeds.com, drseeds.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your bottle of BPC Body Protection Complex today. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
This is the Superhuman Channel, doing reps with the weight of the world.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Diva Nagula. We're talking about his journey from being a physician to being a patient, fighting his own cancer, and all the things that he's learned along the way. Before we talk more about psychedelics, which I'm a big proponent of, just put this comment up. Jeff Clifton says, religion, the word means to reconnect. I hate that today people associate it with rules and dogma. Yeah, it's true. Spirituality has replaced the word religion for people who want a more broader opinion or broader definition and less confines, that you have to do this, you have to believe this way. I've been a big proponent of LSD for a long time. I met Timothy Leary when I lived in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. He spoke at UNLV. It was a cold November night. There were like 20 people that showed up in this big auditorium. No one knew who he was. I had done a lot of acid in my life. I had lots of interesting experience I wanted to talk to him about. And so after his little seminar to this small group, we all moved to the front of the hall. I peeled off, and he and I sat and we talked for about 40 minutes. And one of the things he told me back then has just actually been proven in science. Now, think about this. This was probably 1986 or 87 when I met him. And he told me then that LSD causes neuroplasticity in a unique way. It causes brain neurons from the right and left hemisphere to bypass the corpus callosum and go directly. And this is why you have original thought. Because the processor, the clearinghouse of data, so to speak, the corpus callosum, is not controlling what can connect to where. So the part of the brain that smells can connect to the part of the brain that sees, and all of a sudden you can smell colors. And so I was at...
It's called synesthesia. I think that's the terminology for it.
Synesthesia, yes. And so I was at Quest Nutrition for one of our think tank events, and a guy named Jamie Wheel, I want to say, was there, and he was doing a lecture. I think he wrote a book called Becoming Superman or something like that. And so he talked a lot about flow states and how LSD actually mimics what happens in a flow state. And I peeled off and I talked to him and I told him the story about all the things I talked to Leary with. He says, that was only just proven like last year or 2 years ago that that's exactly what happens when you do LSD. I've done shows on microdosing. I still microdose today. I don't do it all the time. I do it on and off just as I feel. But one of the things that microdosing does that's fascinating to me is, if you've really tripped, if you've actually used enough of a psychedelic where you literally alter your state of mind, you're seeing trails and everything, it just has this different dimension to it. That's one thing. But all microdosing does is just kind of make you feel like, gee, I never noticed the way the sun hits the side of my house like that. It's just so fascinating. Wow. And it gives you a greater appreciation. The only thing I can attribute it to is when you're young, everything is new and fascinating. Doing nothing is exciting, right? As you get older, you've done nothing so many times, it's not fascinating anymore. Microdosing kind of gives you that feeling like everything is new and shiny again. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there is some neuroplasticity that comes out of microdosing. That's why people continue to do it. And it does, after some period of time of microdosing, it does have that effect of having that big one psychedelic dose. And sometimes people prefer that because they're afraid of the trip effect of the psychedelic dose. That's fine. I totally get that. But I agree there. When you're microdosing, and it depends on the specific medicines that you're using. LSD is one specific substance that you can microdose on. You could also microdose on psilocybin, which is the active ingredient of magic mushrooms. You could also microdose on San Pedro, which is the cactus, and it's just basically mescaline. So you can definitely microdose, and so each one of those typically has its own flavor and its effects on the body. But overall, you're getting a little bit more of increased cognition. You're getting a little bit more of creativity throughout the day or a couple days. You just feel like you're more on your heart more. Everything, like you said, the colors are brighter. The air smells cleaner. The taste is sweeter. It really enhances our senses. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of it. I do think that. For me specifically, I think you have to, if you're microdosing or taking any psychedelics to really optimize it, you have to have a clean vessel. You have to have a body that's not polluted. If you're polluted, you're eating these fast food and you're eating processed stuff and you're drinking a lot of alcohol or smoking tobacco a lot or cigarettes, it's just pollutes your body, so you can't get that benefits from the psychedelic experience or from microdosing. So, and like what we've talked about the show, it's about living your life optimally, balancing the mind, body, and spirit. And then it goes to show you have to do that even to experience have a good experience with psychedelics.
Right. No, I agree. So what do you hope people take away from the book?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I wrote this, it was specifically for the audience of people who have cancer or people who have loved ones suffering from cancer. After, it was released in December of last year, and it's been 6-7 months of it being released and talking about it on podcasts and shows. I really think there's a utility of this book for anybody. It's really a playbook of how to live your life and how to really take notice of your life and understand about living in the moment and being more aware of your body. And because that is your tool for health. I mean, if you notice some changes that are appearing over a few days, being just more in tune with your own personal being, your body, your mind state, that allows you to really be able to self-diagnose issues that may be occurring. So yeah, I think it's a playbook and handbook for anybody who wants to live a better life and who wants to optimize their well-being. It's not necessarily for a person who's currently suffering from cancer. It could be applicable for anybody. And so yeah, I would really invite people to take a look at it and see if it resonates with them.
Your cancer scare isn't really over, right? It's day by day. You just live your life.
I research and I come across new things all the time. And it's for me, it's like all about taking it all in and using these strategies to really reduce my stress levels, reduce my inflammation, and increase my longevity. So those are my 3 things that I look for any strategy that I employ. It has to have those 3 things. But no, you're not. It's not. I'm young, and so I'm 46, so I could have a recurrence at any time, and they say that the longer you live after the diagnosis, the more likelihood you have a reoccurrence. But they don't say in these studies is what if you have implementation of lifestyle strategy changes?
Right.
What are your odds of having a recurrence then? No one does studies on that. So,
have you read any of Dr. Thomas Seyfried's work, Cancer as a Metabolic Disorder?
I haven't. No.
You'd like him. You'd like him. He's been on the show a couple times. He has promoted the mitochondrial theory of cancer. Mm-hmm. And one of the studies that he did was, and I'm gonna butcher this, but you'll understand it. So they took rodents that had cancer, and they took cancerous cells and non-cancerous cells from other rodents, and they took the mitochondria out of the cancer cell and put it in a non-cancerous cell, and the mitochondria righted itself. And they dispelled this whole thing that it's genetic as a result, because they were able to reverse that same process. And so, epigenetic testing is very, very popular today. We actually have a sponsor named Chronomics that's over in the UK that does the most advanced next-gen epigenetic testing that is a saliva test, and it actually looks at 20 million plots on your DNA and gives you the things that you should stay away from. These tests, as these tests become more and more efficient and more widespread, where more doctors are using epigenetic testing, I think that we will start to see people be able to avoid their cancers in the future, because it'll actually pinpoint, this is, because we know from twin studies, we know that cancer is not genetic. We have twin studies, we have girls, we have BRCA genes, and we have one that gets breast cancer and one that doesn't. It's not genetic then. Because if it's genetic, they both get it. So epigenetics is really becoming a very fascinating area, especially in the area of cancer.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about that. So genetics is basically how the future is going to be utilizing for practices of personalized medicine. And I recently enrolled into a training program where it's genetics-based personalized medicine. So I learn about the genes, and then based on the genes and the SNPs that we see, we could basically personalize their strategies to live where they can avoid a specific disease. And I think that's the wave of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the book is called From Doctor to Patient, Healing Cancer Through Mind, Body, and Spirit. It's available at the website fromdoctortopatient.com. It's also available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and where finer books are sold. And also you can learn more about the podcast there, which is available at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever you like to listen to your podcast. Thanks for being here today, Dr.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. We're going to take one quick commercial break. When we come back, I got a new episode, and you may be a guest on the show. Stay tuned.
Unlock your potential with the best cognitive enhancement and anti-aging supplements on the market. PureNootropics.net goes the extra mile for the highest quality ingredients, third-party tested to make sure you only receive the best your money can buy. There's no better choice with their money-back guarantee and free shipping. Try their best-selling DHM. Dihydromyricetin prevents hangovers and helps deliver detox after a night of drinking. Get your DHM and other nootropics and longevity supplements from PureNootropics.net, the purest supplements around.
There's no denying that a low-carb, low-sugar keto lifestyle has been shown to reverse chronic inflammation and normalize insulin sensitivity. But we all want a sweet snack from time to time. Well, no matter what you're looking for, you'll find it at Perfect Keto. Bars, cookies, exogenous ketones, keto-friendly performance enhancers, it's all in one place. I love their chocolate quad ketone salts that balance all 4 minerals. And try their keto bars for unique taste satisfaction, all the while knowing you're staying in your keto lifestyle lane. Go to perfectketo.com/superhuman to save 20% 20% off your purchase today.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
Hey, this is Carl. For 14 years, you've heard me talk about Can-C eye drops, and they being the reason that I do not need reading glasses at now 61 years old. But I regularly get emails and messages from people who've been using Can-C and having some amazing results. Recently, I got an email from a fella named Chad, who, because he was on dexamethasone eye drops for over 6 months, developed a cataract. Can-C eye drops actually reduced my cataract to the point where even my doctor has a hard time finding it. I will never stop using Can-C eye drops twice a day. I've been using them since 2008, he says. And you should be too. There is no better way to keep your eyes healthy and seeing clearly than Can-C eye drops. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com today and get on board, and we will both be looking into the future with very clear vision. You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of having. Started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me to help with anxiety. Because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I've found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. So I'll make this fast. I always try to make these fast. So in August, we're launching a new segment. And the name of the segment is Of Fathers and Sons. And what I want to do is I want to explore traditional and unique parenting adaptations from fathers who have male children, because boys learn how to be men from their fathers. I've already gotten 2 guests commitment. Ben Greenfield, who I think is a wonderful dad. Aaron Singerman, who I think is a wonderful dad. And they're raising boys. And, and you could be raising girls too, but if you have a son in the mix, if you know somebody that should be on this show, email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. They don't have to be famous. They don't have to be a podcaster. They don't have to be a supplement company owner. They don't have to be any of those things. They could just be somebody that you know personally who is just taking a unique approach to raising their boys, and their boys are turning out really great. I think men are really under the attack these days, and we have been for a while. And I've said this before to those of you who listen to the show, and that's not taking anything away from women. Not taking anything away from women. But I think it's time to start looking at men who are good fathers and whose children, male children, are turning out to be good young men, and understand what they do differently. Where do they get the courage to do the unique things that they do with their boys? Who did they learn from? Was their father the one? Sometimes the mother turns out a good boy. Maybe, but I want to hear those men say it. I learned a lot of these things from my mom. I lived in a single family, a single parent home. So if you know anybody who is just an amazing father and is also raising boys who seem to be amazing young men, please email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. They can be famous or not famous. It doesn't matter to me. And I want to talk to them. I want to interview them. I want to know what they do, why they do it, where they learned it, how they became who they are, and what they are trying to instill in their boys to move forward to make great young men out of them. So help us out. And, it could be you. If you know somebody, maybe it's you. Maybe you think you're a great dad. Email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. Maybe you're doing things differently than your father did. Maybe you're doing things the same he did. I want to hear from you. onair@superhumanradio.net is the way to get in touch with me, and we will see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Please share the show. Always share the show. Help us grow, and always share the show. There you go. I sang it to you. See you tomorrow.